Hey, welcome everybody. My name is Michael Camo. I'm director of content for T3 Live, and I'm here with David Prince of Inner Circle because we need to make sense of what is going on with some of these AI stocks like Nvidia, SMCI, Dell in particular. Now, David made a big call over last couple of months. He was very bullish on Dell, and then he said into earnings, no mas, it's time to walk away from this one. So, David, I popped up a chart on the screen. Also, an interesting tweet you made that there's no such thing. If this was a response to somebody, no such thing as another Nvidia. Now, I put a chart with, Nvidia is holding really, really strong. Dell fell apart since earnings, and SMCI is, the old lady in the infomercial. I've fallen and I can't get up.
Mhm.
So what do you make of this situation where it feels like Nvidia's king and everybody else is sort of falling off one by one? They're all
So
getting knocked off.
you're going to hate this, but I'm wondering if you might be cool with us doing this. So there's a negative out there today, right? I mean, we all have losers. I have something down, and Mike's like, so we should go over this. I'm like, yeah. I say, can we do an audible and can we go over VKTX? Because I actually think it's pretty cool how we handled it in the situation, at least myself or people that I mentor in with VKTX. Can we
Okay,
start
yeah.
there and go through the ugly first
Yeah, okay, yeah,
rather than
okay.
show off with
So
the good?
okay, yes. Okay, so VKTX is Viking Therapeutics. David, this is a stock David's talked about quite a bit this year. It's taken a big beating on positive study data today. Usual Twitter characters arguing over it. So, David, can you explain how you've been trading this stock?
Sure. First off, so overall, the data looked pretty positive. I don't claim to be a science expert, but from what we could see with their NASH data, which people, if they're familiar with NASH, they might look at a Madrigal, which is a big name that all the top hedge funds and biotech funds own. So it was a big event, and that's why we had this larger move in the stock. I think the stock was up as much as, I don't know, 7-8% pre-market at one point, and now the stock's down 11%. And I thought, I should go over this because it's kind of cool. So it's not affecting my day much. And one might say, how? Well, the stock has been trading awful for, I'm going to go, can you quiet down for 1 second? Thanks so much. So the stock has been ugly for about a month. Like, it used to come down here, get really ugly, and then have these phenomenal bounces uh, quite often to 70, 75, and a few times 80. And it proved very viable at 60. But there was kind of a line in the sand at 60. The recent bounces have been very muted, and the stock has been trading off. And I made a decision, and when anyone would ask about it, I would literally say, I don't want to talk about it. Not because I'm concerned with the stock itself, but I don't see an edge here. The stock is trading so ugly. I think if you take two sides of position, you will miss a lot of opportunity costs, right? Because you'll be so focused on when the bottom's in. And next, I said, and there's some risk in data. So if I am going to play it, it's strictly via calls. It's been the 85 calls, which have whittled down to nothing. And at least it won't affect my day because I know I'm my max risk and I will move on. And one day, yes, it's probably taken out. And yes, it's in a category that is, well, exploding. It seems like every week there are more and more people talking about weight loss. And I have friends that lives are changed by these drugs. But the but is this stock has proven to be a dog. So rather than like make this big bed where it changes your month, year, or week, I've said I'm going to stick with those 85 calls and I'm not going to even buy more. I'm going to let it be ugly and move on to what's important where I can make money today, this week, and this month. So this morning, I guess my money line was up a teeny bit because these options that I was down 90% on or 80% on, I was now down 70%. And now with the stock taking a big hit, I'm back down to 90%. In other words, I'm not noticing it. Am I happy that like my Junes are probably going to be zero? No. But I think what's important about it is for the last 3-4 weeks, when anyone mentioned, I said, listen, I have zero interest. It trades so awful. No matter how valuable a commodity, I think this 5, 6, 7. Now it's, I don't know what it's down to, but this $6-7 billion market company might be to a big pharma company. And I'm talking in terms of like it could be worth 18, 20, 24 billion. It doesn't matter if it breaks down in the meantime. So 60 broke today. The stock was washed out. I've done nothing with my calls because they've gone down so much. And I'm certainly not averaging down. Stock's ugly. And I think it's a lesson. Sometimes price action gives you some hints like step aside and let it do its thing. So I'm proud to say no one amongst my group is really having an awful day because of it. So I figured might as well go over it. No one's happy about it, but it's not ruling our week, day, or month.
Okay. All right. Okay, David. So we have to get back to our friend, the semis, because we have the Nvidia split coming up soon. And, yeah, I mean, like we talked about before, Nvidia seems like it's the last one holding up. Do you think the split means anything at this point?
It means something starting this week. There was some excitement. We had Computex coming out as well with a lot of companies talking about it. So it just adds some fuel to the general fire. We all know it means nothing in the literal sense. There's nothing fundamentally that changes except for the size of the float. But what I think it meant is it gave it a little more bullish backdrop than normal. And I also think it means that the stock will probably be sluggish, and I anticipate some underperformance over the next couple of weeks once the stock splits on Friday. So ultimately, does it mean much? No, it just gives it a little fuel this week, especially you add in the excitement from Computex, this new product he talked about that comes after Blackwell, Rubin, and it added for what was almost a new high yesterday and this morning. But otherwise, it doesn't mean much.
Okay. Do you think Nvidia is more likely to sort of stay elevated and sort of resist the selling that's gone on in some of these second tier names?
Yes, till they get to it. And they always come for it, right? It was just a month ago that I was buying Nvidia between 800 and my low print was 762. I think it was 4 weeks ago. Maybe it's 5 max. So can a correction happen again? Of course, it's just normal, especially at this state in the bull market. But I would anticipate it to be at the latter part of any correction we might have. And when I start to look at the market right now, I'm kind of expecting something to come about pretty soon because the market feels long in the tooth in so many different areas. When I start to look around, I see less and less opportunity on the long side. So this week's the first time I try not to be a top caller. I try and look underneath. Where's there opportunity? Where can we make money this week, next week, where our risk reward is really in our favor? And when I look at the broad indices, I don't see that on the long side very much. So I think they'll come for Nvidia eventually. And I wouldn't be shocked if it's over the next few weeks because the stock will not move like people are accustomed to because there will be 10 times more shares. It'll be thick. And well, we just had Computex. We now have a new news about Rubin coming out in 2026. We have wonderful statements from a million different companies this week at the show talking about how powerful NVIDIA is and how it saves them so much money in the long term. All that is wonderful, but you have to wonder if over the next few weeks, this sizzle wears off a little bit, and it's probably a buying opportunity. I want to make that clear, like every other time, because the earnings power is there in the foreseeable future. But if you're a trader, and if 10 and 20% pullbacks matter, right? And if you look at the last one, 975 to 756, what was that, 22%, I think, top to bottom? Yeah, sure, it'll probably occur again, and I wouldn't be shocked if it's after the split over the next month or so.
Okay, all right, let's move on to, hold on, I got a little live stream glitch right now. Okay, so David, last night, Jim Cramer said Amazon has a lot of room to go higher, and I actually, a little behind the scenes, I asked David if he was being sarcastic, but he said no, he likes Amazon. So what do you like about Amazon here?
I like the fact that they're actually more profitable, producing more cash flow than they ever have, that it trades at a much more reasonable valuation than it ever has. And the fact that they have several businesses that have momentum. The ad business is a bona fide killer right now, right? Doing billions of dollars in revenue. and they're only starting to monetize it. It's the very beginning of their ad business. And if you use Amazon, you see ads for the first time. You can actually see how it exists from big name Fortune 500 companies. Then, of course, retail is proven to get strong. And in an environment where there might be a slowdown, I think they would only benefit because it is a discounter, after all, best price online retailer. And then from what we've seen with AWS, it turns out that numbers are strong, and there has been corporate spending. Maybe not so much with software plays, pure software plays, or internet security plays. We've seen a few fall off. But when it turns out, if there is a company that, well, we finally made a new high, right? Like it lagged the entire market for a long time. And 188 was your spot to at least reach its previous all-time highs. We got there, we went a couple points higher. But if you were to broaden out your perspective and look over the past 2 years, has it lagged behind Microsoft and Google, and more specifically, obviously, Nvidia? Absolutely. So should it, in any bull market that tech has some friendly buyers, should it eventually make its way to 200, 210-ish? I think the answer is definitely yes. It just has a lot of momentum in several different areas. And Andy Jassy's, as far as I'm concerned, the guy's a rock star. He created the most important business. And without AWS, Amazon would not be the Amazon we speak of. So we have the right jockey as well.
Okay. All right. So speaking of software, Inner Circle, a big theme the last couple of days, has been shorting CRM into strength. They had a messy earnings report. What have you been seeing in CRM? Like, why isn't it coming back?
Well, the conventional wisdom in the market is a great earnings report, keep it on your list, buy dips, and there's some action within a pro gap, and hey, let's build a position, right? XYZ is a $100 stock, it opens up at 110, it goes to 117, it trades between 117 and 110, and maybe let's buy in there, right? And let's build a position for its next move higher. And then you have the inverse, right? When you might have a stock you want to be short that misses. And then you have a whole different scenario. You have CRM, which quite frankly had pretty crappy earnings report. And I think part of it is just simply he has done all the cost cutting he can. Corporate spending is slowing down. A lot of their big contracts, as he stated, are being elongated, right? The ability to close these contracts is taking longer and longer. And a lot of things you don't want to see are happening. On top of that, turns out there's been corporate insider selling from the man himself, right? Benioff has done some selling. So then they have the number, stock gets sold, and I come out. I say, listen, it's 15 relative strength. I'm an old man, as evidenced by all this gray hair and beard and stuff. And when you see one of the larger, most important companies in the tech arena at 15 times relative strength, 99% of the time, unless there's fraud, it has a bounce. Now, you're going to get a lot of schmucks out there who are like, are you catching a falling knife? I didn't suggest you have to. I just suggest what history and the facts tell you. And the facts tell you that when Meta goes to 15 or 16 relative strength, or Apple, or any company that produces lots of cash flow with real management that doesn't have fraud, well, more often than not, they have a big bounce. So I even mentioned that on Twitter. And I have a couple of people like, yeah, tell me when it goes to 10 relative strength. I'm like, okay, Shabbat. Anyhow, sure enough, the stock bounced, and it bounced hard. Like, I thought there'd be a bounce. I thought like it would reset itself and maybe be a 25 relative strength. It bounced 5, 10, 15. Hell, the stock basically bounced 20 points off lows to reset this oversold condition. I'm sure there are a couple of fundamental guys that said it was overdone. Now, what I did, right, is anatomy of a trade is you have several different trades within trade, right? Anyone can take a trade and find an area within that trade that works for them. So I'm going to look at the chart now because I forget. So the stock took out its day after earnings high, all right? And what that basically means is some people get a green light to go long, right? Short-term traders. So the high was 225. Once we got above 225, you had a lot of short-term chart type of people who were like, I got to own it. I got to own it. It's oversold. It just took out the highs. That's my signal. Because more often than not, that stock, at least short-term, will make higher highs. Sure enough, it did. Very next day, it got to 234. And that was a Friday. So here's what I did. I said, oh, I don't think this bounce is going to hold, but the momentum is like monstrous. So like any trader who really is a good risk reward manager short term, do you really short the stock over the weekend? Probably not. But I got to start some. So let me do what I call cheating, which is make sure I'm short the stock, but do it via puts, so I don't really have any real risk. My risk is, puts going to zero, but at least I know what they are. And then Monday, if we have a day two with some momentum, I'm pretty confident we're going to get a great short. Sure enough, cut to the chase here. It opened higher on Monday. It squeezed all the way to 240. I can't say I had like a 240 average cost, but I was short in size, in stock, about 238. And then people asked, like, where can it go? I said, probably back to 230. That'll be a big spot, and then 225. And I said, it just had an amazing bounce. If you try and catch the bottom, you may miss it. So by 232, 233, I got flat, but I have been aggressive in doing puts on all bounces. We did the same thing today with 220 puts and 230 puts. The 220 puts went from a low of like 57 cents to $1.30, and the 230s went from like, I don't know, $2 to $4. Anyway, both performed really well. So I think the company eventually has lower lows in store because I'm not that bullish the market or software here because we're seeing a breakdown in the whole space. And it's a stock that I'm very comfortable shorting on rips. And sometimes you don't really have to overthink things in the market. I thought there's a way to really have a great week. I think we short this stock on strength. So got lucky and it worked out.
Okay. Oh, I wouldn't say lucky. I think you had a decent plan going into it. Okay, all right. So we've noticed a lot of people asking questions about position sizing. And we can't necessarily give rules that apply to everybody, but at least for yourself, how do you know when you're too big in something, and how do you know when you're too small in something?
Generally, you're too small in something if the stock goes down and you don't care. All right. If it doesn't affect you, then in essence, you haven't taken enough risk to really make it make sense on the upside either. So I always believe if you're going to take a position, I don't mean a Q trade, a position, you have to be able to be hurt. If you can't get hurt, then like simple logic says you probably aren't going to make enough money to make it worthwhile on the upside. And frankly, the way I look at it is pretty simple. If one stock takes over your non-market time, your sleep, or your chat with your friends, or what you're doing at the gym, you're thinking about this one position. And then finally, more important than anything else, I always find is opportunity cost. If you find yourself, say someone decided VKTX will never break 60 and you bought 5,000 shares at 62 and then you didn't stop out and you're looking at it at 55 today and you didn't short CRM, let's say you know someone like me who said short CRM, or you didn't buy oil with us, which we bought when it was so ugly this morning, and you're missing all those trades, then you're also too big. And that's what I find maybe the biggest issue is. If something becomes so myopic where makes you so myopic where you're missing opportunity, then you're too big. So you really have to be able to think clear, sleep, function, and be a really clear-minded money manager, even if that position is against you. And if it is taking your entire attention, you're too big.
Okay, all right. Now let's talk about a little bit more about people's mindset, because I've noticed this a few times where people in our communities, they will look to their leader, in this case it would be you, as sort of permission to take really big risks and do really crazy things. Now, where does that come from, and how do people sort of overcome that gambling urge?
You know what? I really think the answer here is to each their own, meaning certain times it's someone hasn't been doing the job when they should have, so they're trying to make up for lost time, which is always a disaster, right? They missed a great trade, so now the next trade, even if the opportunity is not there, they want that trade to make up for the one they screwed up on. Or sometimes it's as simple as people are bored and need to fill up time. So I do want to make it clear, everyone kind of has their own issues, and usually It's a combination of a bunch or one of those. They're trying to keep themselves busy. They can't sit on their hands. And then, frankly, there's a group of people out there who are still out to make money versus do the right trade and make money. And I know it sounds silly. Like you'll have kind of, let's just say, how do I say this? Let's say less sophisticated people be like, well, we all do this to make money. But no, there are people out here who do it to make money and do it the right way and feel proud about how they do it, or be able to help others. The point is that if you literally concentrate on the money, as dumb as this sounds, because we all know it's rudimentary type stuff, but if you just focus on making money, you usually don't execute well. So a lot of people are like, I want to make X amount today and this week. And let's face it, it's about how much you want to make over the next month and next year. When you start thinking how much I'm going to make today, you start creating trades that aren't there. So a lot of people, I think, have those issues. Which one of them, or whether it's all of them, I don't know. Everyone's a little different. Like yesterday, I said, we'll see what happens. CRM came along, and I felt like I was swinging. I was doing puts. I felt very comfortable that this was a risk reward idea I thought could make my week. So I took some sides. This morning I said, I don't see a lot. I do like oil. We're on our 5th day down. And as USO gets into the mid 70s, I'll be a buyer. And beyond that, let's see what pops up, right? So I think I try and remind people it's not a game, and the more serious they are about not forcing things, the better they'll do. But there are people who still are learning that. So they'll often ask questions because they already know the answer, but they want permission to act like a child. And I'm not the nicest guy, like I am, but I don't, let's just say, I don't step lightly. So I'll usually say, stop being a schmuck and like, don't force anything. Go read a book.
Oh, okay. All right. There's also an interesting psychological phenomena where people are more fearful of risks than they are excited about opportunities. Like the pain of losing $10,000 is way more powerful than the idea of winning $10,000. Do you think these dollar-based goals make any sense at all?
Over the long haul, I don't mind them, actually, because I think everyone needs to have aspiration and motivation, and sometimes that motivates people. I just think time frame is so important. And if you really look at the trajectory of so many careers and success stories, it goes like that, and then that, and then that, and then like it's years later, it just starts to go like that. And too many people don't understand that when you really force things short term, you really can screw up your move north and how much money you make. So I think you can do it as long as you're doing it in a mature fashion, which is you don't wake up on a Wednesday and say, I need to pay bills or I want to buy my wife a new car and try and make X amount of dollars. So if you can broaden your perspective to the next 2 weeks, the next month, the next year, and know that sometimes, and really for me, this has proven to be the case for anyone in Inner Circle and 99% of good traders out there, sometimes your entire year is made in a month. Sometimes your entire month is made in a day. And trying to make money daily is not how to do it. It's to swing the bat when the solid, swingable, great pitches come your way, when they're in the strike zone and there really is something meaty to swing on. Not because, I always like to say, you don't try and make money because you're in the mood today and you weren't yesterday. But it's just like, it just doesn't work.
Okay. All right. Okay, guys, I think that's a good note to end on. If you want to join David's waiting list, Inner Circle currently has a waiting list because the community has grown so much over the last 2 months. If you want to get in the waiting list and get notified as soon as we're accepting new members, go to t3live.com/DP, t3live.com/DP. David, as always, lots of fun. Guys, we'll be back next week.
Have a good afternoon, all. Thanks for joining.